Good morning. Today is Thursday, Chai Kislev, the 18th day of the month of Kislev. And today we learn the last section of the Holy Tanya, written by the Alter Rebbe, Tanya, the first Chabad Rebbe. And tonight and tomorrow is Chag HaGeula. It's considered it's the Rosh Hashanah of Chassidus. So today, as the Tanya closes out, the Alter Rebbe encourages all of us to daven properly. He gives guidelines for appropriate prayer, and he puts out a call to study the laws of Shabbos thoroughly. You should reprove your comrade even 100 times. This is something, Yuda, that we've been learning in our JLI class of nurturing relationships, that it's incumbent upon us, but we have to very carefully put ourselves in that person's shoes and empathize with them before we start telling them off. So we have to make sure to do it in the right way, in the correct way. The Alter Rebbe writes, "V'lezois lo uchali sapek ulachrish milizloik oid b'koil anois chalusha." He writes, Alter Rebbe, I cannot contain myself and refrain from crying out in a voice of pained weakness. B'matusa minachui berachim nefishin. I plead with you out of deep compassion. I plead with you out of deep compassion. Take pity on your souls. Make sure when it comes to learning Torah and davening, do it with proper kavanah, do it with proper concentration. Don't get distracted. Everyone should begin in unison, together as one, word by word. Not one person here, one person there, scattered all over the place. One's sitting quietly, and one's chatting. God forbid. And the person who has to remain focused completely is the one who's leading the service. This position is abandoned to whoever wishes to go grab it. Or because not even one desires it. Nobody wants to go and lead. So sometimes it's led by the wrong person who just wants to rush through the davening. This reason, the advice that I'm giving, and which should be established into law, should not be violated. Choose certain individuals who are appropriate to lead the davening, either by lot, you make a girdle, which is like a raffle or whatever, or by consent of the majority of the people. This is the person who should lead us, and who is fit for such an office, for such a position. Person who should daven slowly, word for word, at a moderate pace, out loud. Neither overly prolonging the davening, don't stretch it out and schlep it out, or racing through it. It's their duty to lead the davening on the day appointed to him or to whoever it is. He should assemble around him those who pray, who daven loud, or even if they're whispering. The people that are closest to the chazan shouldn't be rushing. The ones that are rushing are probably people, I'm just adding this on my own words, They came late, they're standing in the back. But the ones who are davening with the minyan, with the chazan, should daven closer to him. It always bothered me, and I hope no one gets offended when I say this, but it always bothered me how so many people sit towards the back. Pick a seat closer up front, especially if you're on time, if you're early. Come sit closer to at least to the bimor, to the chazan. This is amplified in age-old communal regulations in many towns. This is the way they do it. They pick a chazan and they rally around him. I now come, writes Alter Rebbe, to renew them and to strengthen them and give them chizuk, strength, and not to be weakened, chas v'shalom. Gewalt, Gewalt. In Yiddish, Alter Rebbe wrote, Gewalt is like a cry, like oy ad masa yezalon l'meikesh. How long will this be an obstacle for us? How long will it be that people get up to the Amud and race through it and no one cares and it's not good? Have we not sufficient reproofs and troubles that have overtaken us? We know that davening is the antidote to our troubles, so why are we racing through it without proper davening and proper kavanah? Hashem yishmerenu, nachamenu, b'chiflayim, v'shashia, tehare v'taher, libeinu la'avde b'emes. Hashem protect and console us with redoubled support and purify our hearts to serve Him in truth. Strengthen and fortify your hearts, chavre, all who hope in God. Also complete the entire study the entire Talmud year after year. In every community, apportion the tractates by lot or by consent, each individual choosing the tractate that he desires to study. In a city with numerous synagogues, each congregation should divide up and complete the Talmud. And if a congregation is too small to implement this program, they should join forces with men of a larger one. This statute that the entire Talmud should be studied should not be varied or violated. In addition, each of the participants should individually read the whole of Tehillim 119 every week. Since due to the frailty of our times, not everyone is capable of fasting the way he should. So this is a new part. He says that since we're weak, the counsel that's offered follows the declaration of our sages of blessed memory. Whoever observes Shabbos according to its law is forgiven for all his sins. The term according to its law is used advisedly, for the Shabbos cannot be properly observed without the knowledge of its laws. How are you going to keep Shabbos if you don't know how to do it properly? So we have to learn the laws. It's therefore incumbent upon every individual to master the great laws of Shabbos. So the term great law echoes the expression in the Gemara regarding checking one's clothes before sundown on Friday not to transgress a prohibition later. It's talking about carrying on Shabbos. So you're supposed to check your pockets before Shabbos. Here in West Orange, we do have an Erev, but it's still a good practice to check your clothing to see if you're carrying anything you shouldn't be carrying inadvertently. And I think that's a general idea of before Shabbos, you want to line everything up to make sure you're doing all the laws properly. Don't just rush into Shabbos at the last second. You have to learn the laws. So the laws of Shabbos thus not only inform us of what's prohibited, but also how to avoid transgression on Shabbos. Make sure we set up the hot plate early enough. Make sure we add water to the cholent, that there shouldn't be a problem. That on Shabbos, you're going to start thinking to stir it, to add water. Just a couple of examples. Set the Shabbos lights up, set the temperatures right in your rooms, so that later on you have to, find somebody to turn it on, turn it off, do this, do that. We also have to be careful on Shabbos. We have to focus on God. That's what Shabbos is all about. It's not that we're not working. We are working very hard, but our work is davening and learning, putting in our effort to get closer to Hashem. So therefore, the Alter Rebbe says, don't speak devarim b'teilim, which are sich b'teila, which are just idle chatter, extra words that are unnecessary. It's known to the mystics of Kabbalah that all the mitzvahs comprise an internal and external aspect, the spirituality of the mitzvah and the physical act that we have to actually do the mitzvah. Lighting Shabbos candles is taking a candle and taking a flame and lighting the candles and saying a blessing, but there's also a spiritual aspect to it, the light, the spiritual light that it brings. So Shabbos he shvisa ma'asiyah gashmius k'moshe shavas Hashem ma'asiyah shamayim va'aretz gashmiyim. The externality of the mitzvah of Shabbos is stopping the physical activity, just as Hashem ceased making the physical heaven and earth. But there's also the spiritual element. The internal dimension of Shabbos is one's intention during the davening. You don't have to worry about anything else. You don't have to worry about your bank account or what has to be done with your car and the mechanic or anything like that. Right now, your focus solely is family and Hashem. Torah mitzvahs. And to focus during the davening on Shabbos and during the Torah study on cleaving to Hashem Echad. Shabbos Hashem Elikecha, as it is written, it is Shabbos to the Lord your God. So the underlying cessation of labor on Shabbos is the concept of elevation. We rise above the physical labors. By the way, you still work very hard. You're setting up the table, you're cleaning up the table, you're setting up the shul, you're doing whatever. There are certain things you can do. We're not doing creative labor. When a person rests from his labor, his work, at any time, the energy that's been vested in it rises and returns to its source within the soul. So all that work that you did during Shabbos is being elevated, during the week is being elevated on Shabbos. So too, the cessation of labor and resting on Shabbos means that the soul, the neshama, which during the week had been immersed in mundane activities, is uplifted to Hashem. Zuhi b'china zachar. And this is the internal level of the mitzvah Shabbos, the element of remembering. So there's two levels of remembering, zachar and observing, shamar. We have to remember the Shabbos and keep it holy. Remember that we have to focus and dedicate our lives to Hashem on Shabbos, and we have to observe. Shamar, reflecting the two commandments, remember the Shabbos to sanctify it and observe Shabbos to sanctify it. So we elevate the soul on Shabbos through proper kavanah during davening and during learning, which is an act of remembering. B'chinas shamar, we're almost done, guys. B'chinas shamar, the pnimios he, hashvisa midiburim gashmim k'moishe shavas Hashem miyud ma'moris shenivra v'hem shamayim v'aretz gashmim. The inner dimensions of the element of observing is refraining from speech about material affairs. You know the old joke about the guy who says, Nita Shabbos Geret, we shouldn't speak about this on Shabbos, but I have a car to sell. And the guy goes, Nita Shabbos Geret. We're in the middle of shul, that's not appropriate. Later on, he comes to the guy and he says, by the way, Nita Shabbos Geret, I really could use a car. My car is dying. Nita Shabbos Geret, like, how much are you asking for it? Like, we shouldn't speak about it today, but just to give me an idea. He goes, Nitav Shabbos Geret, I already sold it. So, If you're not allowed to speak about it on Shabbos, you can say, oh, I'm not allowed to speak about it, but by the way, da-da-da-da-da. And then you end up selling it on Shabbos. Your mamish, that's a terrible, you're not allowed to do that. That's business on Shabbos. I know my brother's very makpid also that you don't plan. Like we were even joking, okay, after Shabbos, whatever, nit of Shabbos get, but just remember that after, no. Don't plan anything for after Shabbos. Right now we're dedicated to Shabbos. Anything that has to be done Saturday night, you plan it before Shabbos. On Shabbos, we focus on HaKadosh Baruch Hu. So the inner dimension of observing is refraining from speech about material affairs, just as Hashem refrained from uttering from the 10 utterances through which the physical world, heaven and earth, were created. The external aspect of observing is refraining from active labor. The internal aspect of observing is refraining and resting from speech about material affairs. For one opposite the other. Speaking about material affairs on Shabbos is the inverse of the rest and elevation that a Jew secures on Shabbos through prayer and Torah study. If you have extra time, learn something or play with the kinderlach. If you have kids or grandkids, Reuven, play with the grandkids. But otherwise, we should be focusing on davening. I've said this 100 times. Rabbi Muchkin, Zolzang Gesund in Montreal, when it came in Gan Yisrael in camp, we would get to the shul 9, 10, whatever time the davening was. And when we would get back late in the afternoon, he was still holding Shema. He was, basically, it's not fasting. I'm talking about 4 o'clock, after eating and activities. And he would be davening slowly, every word, singing a niggin. So the takeaway for today is we complete the Tanya with practical takeaways for a chassid of Alter Rebbe. Number 1, choose a chazan who's not in a rush. Make sure he says every word out loud. Everybody should stand near him and daven slowly and articulate the words. We daven with a minyan. We daven carefully. We have kavanah. Number 3, we study a tractate of Talmud annually. Number 4, we study the detailed and intricate laws of Shabbos. And number 5 is understand the hidden and mystical dimensions of Shabbos and keep Shabbos on a much higher level. Of course, there's always room to grow. So even if we do a good job now, we could do an even better job next Shabbos, which is tomorrow night. L'shana toiva, l'limud achsidus, v'darkei achsidus, tekosevu v'sechosemu. May we all be inscribed and sealed for a good year in the study of Chassidus and in the ways of Chassidus, good yantiv and a good yar.